Well, it's great to have you on, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm good. I feel like I've just written my final exams for the school year.
So Tom Russell was one of the witnesses to testify earlier during the commission. And I think it's been probably 5 live streams since we didn't have you on. So can you explain who you are? Can you tell our viewers a little bit about your background, who you are, what you're doing here in Ottawa?
Well, I only have 40 minutes. So yeah, so I've been here. I did participate in the convoy in January and February. And I was summoned or subpoenaed to come here and testify at the Public Order Emergency Commission, which is where I've been for the last couple of weeks since it started. We're on, I think, day 15 of all the testimony. Mm-hmm. And I'm just here with the lawyers and some of the other witnesses, Tamara Leach, and Chris Barber. And we're just assisting the legal team with a lot of the fine detail. For when other people testify, we can fill in a lot of the blanks that maybe our lawyers don't have. Mm-hmm. So, and then my part-time gig is I come on here most nights.
Yeah. And usually I'm the one that's better dressed between both of us, but say you're the one who's I
would have been upset if you didn't mention at least the tie with a proper shirt.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have the puppy though, but you have a tie, you have a suit. I've been telling you for a few weeks now, wear a tie, wear a tie.
I know.
First time you wear it, and I'm not even wearing it myself.
I know.
So, the clip that we saw earlier, the first clip that we looked at right before you came on, was a clip from the scrum that you did after the commission, right after the commission, after your testimony with the media, well, not every media as we see. We're going to get to that a little bit later, but there's so much to unpack from both your testimony, Keith's testimony, what we saw today. Let's throw one of the clips from Tom's testimony from today. I guess I'll take just a second.
Sure.
We can take a look at the first one.
Mm-hmm. Noticed things that I never before believed that I would see in Canada related to the way the police and bylaw and the government were going after Canadians. And for the first time in my life, I was, actually afraid of police. And I have several friends that are police officers. And I had a phone call with Randy Hillier one day, and Randy didn't know who I was. This was, I sent an email to him and Roman Baber and other people, and months later, his office had returned the call. And Randy doesn't even recall the conversation. And they said, I spent 25 years of my life in the military, and for the first time, I'm actually afraid in my own country. And he said, never be afraid. Like, you can't be afraid of the police or the government. They're here to serve us. And I think for me, that kind of flipped a switch where I was like, I went from thinking I'm afraid to get arrested or beaten by the police or getting an $880 fine to, you know what, now I want the fine. I'm done. I'm not going to hide from these people anymore. And so that started to mentally transition the way I thought. And then we came to a point where I thought, well, at some point, the lawyers are going to step in and intervene and start protecting the public. And they didn't, except for a few. Then when the vaccine came out, I thought, well, the medical community is going to stand up and put a stop to this because of informed consent. And they didn't, except for a few. And it was the truckers that gave me an opportunity to actually get into, fighting for my kids' rights.
Well, first of all, I think that you did extremely well during the testimony. It was really great to watch both you and Keith. I think both of you did a great job. I think the clip that we just saw right here, a lot of Canadians are feeling the same way. I believe at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of Canadians were willing to comply with the rules, were willing to go along with the authoritarian mandates that were placed to them. And I think through the pandemic, when they saw the government actually overreaching a lot, and we even saw Keith talk about it, that's the reason why he became involved with GCCF, became involved with the Freedom Convoy. I think that's how a lot of Canadians are feeling. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I learned a lot about how Canadians felt when I was campaigning with the Ontario Party. Mm-hmm. Every day we would go out to an event and we would talk to ordinary Canadians, and the level of fear and anxiety that people felt in this country, like you saw in the video, are things that I never, ever thought that I would experience in Canada. And unfortunately, we did. And in the horror stories that I heard over and over and over while campaigning were very reflective of the things that I was seeing. In fact, I was watching Rebel Media long before I was involved in the Convoy. My actual source of good unedited information was coming from Rebel and a few other alternative media sources. I knew I couldn't trust the mainstream media, but what I was seeing was how I was feeling. And, it's really heartbreaking to acknowledge that is the reality in this country. And that is all thanks to both the legacy media and the government of Canada and every political party, every level of government in this country.
As someone who served in the army, is that something that you were expecting to see from your government? I don't think.
No, absolutely not. If you actually, a lot of people bring up the oath all the time. You're forgetting your oath. If you actually look at the oath for there are a couple of different ones that police give, but for the military, you don't swear an oath to the people of Canada or the Constitution. You actually swear an oath at the time to the Queen of England, her heirs and successors. Right. And so, you have to be clear on why you're joining the military, obviously. I know what was in my heart when I joined the military, and it had nothing to do with upholding a tyrannical regime. And as far as I was concerned, I still am concerned. That's what we have right now in this country.
Yeah, is that one of the reasons why you decided to join James Stop and the group Veterans for Freedom and work alongside all of these people?
Yeah, I think that when the veterans or the police take a stand of this magnitude or this importance, I think it is I think the public should take special notice of that. It is the role of a soldier to fight if called, and there's something called informed consent, where not informed consent, unlimited liability that is exclusive to being a military, a soldier. And when you live by unlimited liability, that means that you could be ordered to your certain death in combat. So when the people that are willing to lay down their lives, literally, are stepping out of the norms and speaking up, I think the public should take notice of that. But unfortunately, because of the mainstream media, what we often get called is traitors and insurrectionists. And I think it's unfair. I think it doesn't show a lot of evolved thinking on the part of the Canadian public overall. But when the police and the military both stand up and say, hey, there's a problem here, I think the public should take note of that and stop listening to the anchor man.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Yeah, we've heard a lot of people call James Stop a traitor, call yourself a traitor.
I got called a traitor on the way walking here.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah.
Was it by the same lady who's
the same lady out front of the commission?
Traitor. I always find it so incomprehensible how someone who can stand up to the rights of Canadians, which is literally his job, in a certain way, which is what he has to do as a true Canadian, as an army man.
Well, the irony is
he called the traitor.
Yeah, the irony is that every soldier knows that they could end up sacrificing their life on behalf of people that hate them.
Yeah.
I could have been killed in combat so that she had the right to go out there, that lady there with the
and call you a terrorist.
And call me a terrorist and scream vile things at me. And that's something that as a soldier, you accept the fact that people will have the right to say certain disgusting things right to your face, no matter what.
Well, that's freedom of speech. That's the foundation of Western civilization. Yeah. Another interesting thing that you also touched on during your testimony, and we can see this on the clip 10, was your personal experience in regards to government freezing bank accounts of Canadians. Can we show that clip? It's the 10th clip in the list.
And were you given any information, either from the bank or from the police, as to how your bank accounts could be reopened?
I was never notified that my bank accounts had been frozen, and I was never notified that they would be, and I was never notified that they were reinstated at no time.
So did you just find out that they were frozen because you could no longer use your cards?
Could no longer access any of our financial assets at all.
And I think in addition to this clip, there's also part of your testimony when you talk about your family having their bank account frozen in deeper length. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think the lesson here for everybody is, what's the phrase? Cash is king.
Credit cards.
Yeah, that we now live in a society where if you step out of line with what the federal government believes, they will just shut you off.
Yeah.
You know, and Derek Sloan and I, and you know, when we were campaigning, actually, and I'm bringing this up because I know Derek is on after and he can speak to this as well, but we were adamantly against
that's right.
The digital ID and a cashless society for exactly these reasons. Because when my bank accounts were frozen, my credit card that was on file with my son's drugstore, we could not get his heart medication. Right. And what did my son do that now put his life in jeopardy? He didn't do anything. And the government of Canada, without any consideration to the second and third order effects of people's lives. You know, we heard other testimony, I think, from Bridget, that she struggled. She couldn't get her husband's diabetes medication, if I'm remembering that correctly. So, you know, they didn't give any consideration to the second, third order effects of what they were doing. They just did it because they could.
Yeah.
And then you see Chrystia Freeland just giggling away like Philip the goat from Diagolon, you know, when she's talking about how she's freezing financial assets. She thought it was funny.
Freedom in 2022 is certainly about being able to make free choices for ourselves and for our family, who we believe are the best. We have seen so much suffering over the last 2 years. People who die alone in terrible conditions, people losing dream jobs, polarized families, and a society that insult and yell at each other for making a different medical choice. But people have risen, and it will be through them that the future will have an important meaning for all of you, but especially for the next generation. Rebel News has been present at every step of this great challenge, but so many other pioneers whom you could meet and hear at our great conference about freedom for our beautiful country, which is Canada. This conference, which will be held in Calgary and Toronto, will show you the faces of the influence of freedom that you have seen over the past 2 years. You don't want to miss this. So get your ticket now at rebelnewslive.com. And it will be a pleasure to see you there and meet you in large numbers. It's time to drop these masks and let the truth shine.
All right, mainstream media. That was one of the main parts of your testimony as well. We heard you talk a lot about them. Before we start, why don't we throw to one of your clips, clip number 8, where we can see you in the inquiry talk about your views in regards to mainstream media.
Sure.
Let's take a look.
Did you take any steps to clarify what you meant with the media outlets who were reporting that the protesters wanted to form a coalition government?
No, I was not in charge of direct contact. I had no direct contact with the media. And as far as I was concerned, my belief was if they actually started to do their job and report fairly, we would reward them with contact, or I would, or whatever, not necessarily me. But if they continued down the path of constantly vilifying and lying about us, I didn't see the point really of talking to them at all. We were effective, highly effective at getting out everything we wanted to get out to the public through alternative and social media.
So you didn't make any efforts to go to the
No, sir.
reporters who had reported
No.
a different interpretation and say, that's wrong, can you please fix it?
No.
And so you don't know whether or not they would have issued a correction or maybe not a correction, a follow-up story. You just don't know.
I don't know. And they never reached out to talk to me from my knowledge either.
You know, I can assure you from someone who was in the media room while you were saying it, the vibe wasn't the same as it was right before that. What's your issue with mainstream media?
They lie. And they have been doing nothing but lie since the pandemic began. And I think they probably were part of the lie before the first lockdowns started. And they just continue to perpetuate all of Justin Trudeau's lies. They do not report in a balanced, transparent manner. They don't go and get stories of even the doctors or even lawyers or nurses that had a counter opinion to the official government or Ministry of Truth's beliefs. And so I just, after all this time, I am not going to ever give them a soundbite. And I had an issue too when James Top, myself, and Paul Alexander, Dr. Alexander, met with. You were there. You covered it that day. In fact, I took the video that you posted up on YouTube and I reposted that because you're the only one who actually didn't edit. You captured the truth of what the conversation was. The whole thing. And they chopped it up and created their own little narrative around sound bites. And so I just don't want to give them any sound bites whatsoever that they're going to chop up. And I have no doubt now that they'll take even my little passing comment when I walked by and said they're liars. They'll chop that up into something disgusting like they typically do. So as far as I'm concerned, they're just doing, they're the biggest megaphone for Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh and all these people that are perpetuating lies. We all know they get paid. I mean, it's almost self-abusive because we as taxpayers fund.
Yeah, we're paying for that.
We're paying to be lied and victimized by the mainstream media. So I refuse to participate in any of their games. So I walked right by, I saw you and I only I spoke to you and I spoke to Andrew Lawton. Because I just refuse to reward them in any way possible, because even if they tell you that they're good, they're going to find a way to make you look bad.
Oh, for sure. And you know, it's funny that you mentioned megaphone, because that's what I was thinking of. There's a picture that I saw recently online. It's journalism in the 1970s, where you see the politician speaking, you see the people on one side, and you see the reporter with a megaphone shouting at the politician, being the voice of the people. Now move on to 2022. You see the exact same thing, the politician there, the people here, but you see the journalist pointing the megaphone at the people, basically regurgitating everything the politician's saying. Is this what you see?
Well, that's exactly it. You know, and I've told this story a few times in various events, that in 1933, when Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany, first thing he did was actually issue free radios into the homes of every German family. And he was also in control of the content that those homes were receiving. This is how governments historically get their message out to the people that they want the people. And now look at us at Bill C-11. Last I was tracking it, it passed its second reading in the Senate. We're inches away. We're inches away from the government having full dominance of the internet. And that puts all of us at risk of being an informed society if the government is going to dictate what we can and cannot consume.
No, Bill C-11 is an absolutely terrible bill. It's an online censorship bill, Soviet Union style censorship bill. It's absolutely terrible. And if it passes third reading in the Senate,
and it will.
Yeah, I have some hopes that it won't pass, but I think there's a large chance. I think it will be terrible for the future of Canadian society. Listen, we have you on for only a few minutes.
Sure.
And I really want to get to one specific clip. As we mentioned earlier, after your testimony, you stepped out of the room and you did a 3-minute scrum with us. I think it will be worth it to show the full scrum that we did together. So let's take a look at that, and then we can talk a little bit, and then I'll let you go.
Sure.
fully represented your position during the convoy, roughly represented Freedom Convoy. Can you elaborate on what exactly you meant by that?
Yeah, and I talked about it in the testimony today, where they vilified people or vilified the comments that I made for basically saying that I wanted to form a government or be part of a government. That was not the intent of those comments. They never retracted it after we did the updated statement saying we wanted nothing to do with the internal workings of the government, but the media never corrected that. They just continued on the vicious attacks and the narrative that they wanted all along. That served their purpose.
Can you also explain? So you weren't an organizer at the beginning, but you were also only a spokesperson, as you said, for 2 days. So why were you testifying on the stand today in the inquiry?
I was summoned to be here, like all the other witnesses.
And last question from me, do you think there's ever a way that our country can recover from the damage that was done from the politicians and the police in the past 2 years?
The people of Canada have no voice, they have no power because of the legacy media constantly lies and misrepresents everything that has been going on for 2 years. And I think the media is when the media decides to be on the side of the people, then I think you'll get some change. But right now they're on the side of the government who constantly lies.
If Justin Trudeau or representatives of the federal government had met with you, what would your response have been, or those of your colleagues?
I would have clearly articulated why these mandates we believed were unjustified, immoral, illegal, and that Canadians had spoken and sent us to Ottawa to deliver that message and come up with a way to remove the mandates and then plot a way forward.
If they heard that message but didn't change policy, would that be enough for the protest to have said mission accomplished and go home, in your view?
No, the objective was to get rid of all federal mandates. And leadership starts at the top. So if Justin Trudeau had decided to do the right thing, the right moral thing, and to listen to the wishes of Canadians, then maybe the premiers would have found their moral courage as well and started listening to people in this country. Because 2 years prior to the convoy, Canadians were protesting all over this country and not one single politician heard those concerns.
Can you talk about the relationship with the police services on the ground?
Who are you with?
I'm a reporter, a local reporter for Le Droit. Can you talk about the relationship with the police?
Did you get everything?
In a certain way, I feel like that was a liberal politician moment. That's what we're being told all the time. When Doug Ford, who are you with? Rebel News? That's not enough. Those people aren't used to being told no.
Yeah, and there's a big part of me that felt a little, a moment of satisfaction walking away because, they want to take the soundbite, chop it up, and make it into something ugly. Mm-hmm. And I just don't want to play that game with them. For as long as alternative media is allowed to continue and allowed to keep telling the truth, that is, that's going to be a direct threat to the government in the competition. I think that's the genesis of Bill C-11. It's not about keeping the internet safe from hate. It's about keeping absolute dominant control over what Canadian citizens get to digest and consume really from the media. The message is going to be controlled directly from the government of Canada, the Ministry of Truth. It is not going to be, you're not going to have the ability to do research. I mean, I would, if I was people, I'd be out there getting stocks in VPN companies right now. That's what I'd be doing.
For sure, I'm sure you're going to do a lot of profits in the next few months if Bill C-11 is actually enacted into law. Mm-hmm. Just one last thing, you seem to have this little competition, this little clash, a little hatred towards mainstream media right now. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's ever going to be resolved?
No, I think we need to defund the CBC and every media outlet that gets money from the government. And, the CRTC has a lot of explaining to do to the public because really the CRTC was put into place because there was limited airwaves for the legacy media to get different portions of it. That's not the case with the internet anymore. And so CRTC has become irrelevant, but they've had to reinvent themselves as, the gatekeepers of the internet now. And it's completely unnecessary. It's unnatural. And I just don't think that we need it. And I think the market is going to punish legacy media with their behavior anyway. So that's a bit of a risk to us, because as they get less viewership, the government's going to get more creative in making sure that we find a way to consume their garbage.
That's right. Well, that's what we're seeing with Bill C-11.
C-11, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Samse. I'll see you very soon in the next few days.
Next time, wear a tie.
I've been the one who's been telling you that for the past few weeks, and you're finally wearing. I'm glad to see you wear one.
Yeah.
I can promise I will wear one next time that you come on the show. You'll be less well dressed than me next time. All right, guys, stay on with us. We'll be able to have Derek Sloan come on right after this short break.